listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Good morning, Overwatch League fans. This is your Overwatch League daily episode for January 27th, 2018. Today I'm joined by Overwatch caster and analyst Heurix to discuss yesterday's matches, but first, let's go to the scoreboard brought to you by patreon.com/OWL Daily Show. Yesterday was a blockbuster day for competitive Overwatch. For the first match of the day, we saw the undefeated Seoul Dynasty take on NYXL, who lost to Philadelphia the day before. We started off on Eichenwald, where we would see a tough NYXL defense hold Seoul just shy of point B. NYXL would follow up with some strong offense thanks to some clutch plays by Libero on Genji and Jonak on Zenyatta. Eichenwald goes to NYXL. For the second map, we go to Horizon Lunar Colony. NYXL again starts out finishing the map with the 2-minute advantage over Seoul. Seoul would finish the second round with just under 2 seconds to spare. In the end, despite all the advantages that NYXL had, they wouldn't be able to defeat Seoul on Horizon Lunar Colony. Seoul wins the map 5-4. After halftime, we went to Oasis. After an intense back and forth and no sign of Pine, NYXL would come out on top 2-1. Going into Junkertown, NYXL is up 2 maps to 1. On defense, NYXL manages to hold Seoul just shy of point B. However, Seoul would do one better and full hold NYXL in Junkertown, forcing a map 5. NYXL struggled on Lijiang Tower on Thursday against Shadowburn's Pharah, but they stayed with a similar strategy against Seoul. NYXL would narrowly take a round 1 victory before decisively winning round 2. In the end, NYXL wins 3 maps to 2, and we're left with no more undefeated teams in Overwatch League. In the second match of the evening, the Philadelphia Fusion, who had just defeated NYXL, take on the 0-5 Shanghai Dragons. The Fusion would opt to play Hotba in place of Poco on Diva, and Dayfly in place of Boombox on support. Shanghai did not look good in their first 2 maps, dropping them quickly to the Fusion. However, on Oasis is where things began to turn in favor of the Dragons. After 3 rounds, Shanghai would end up taking their first match against Philadelphia. On Junkertown, Shanghai would push it near the end on offense, and in an amazing climax, the Dragons would stop Philadelphia less than 1 meter away from the Shanghai marker, and were going into a map 5. Despite the Dragons' heroics, the Fusion would prove to be too tough a competitor on Lijiang Tower, and would take the series 3 maps to 2. In the final match of the evening, we would see the 0-4 Dallas Fuel take on the 2-3 San Francisco Shock. The Fuel desperately need a win to keep their stage and their season alive. We started out with a draw on Eichenwald, but that would be as close as this one would get, as the Fuel would finally pull away on the backs of Effect and Mickey, who played an excellent Roadhog by the way, and the Fuel win this one 3 maps to 0 with 1 draw. Today I'm joined by Heurix to discuss yesterday's matches. So obviously, in the NYXL versus Seoul match, this was close all the way through, but what was the X factor for NYXL to get the edge?
Saebyeolbe really stepped up in a big way for this match. I think prior to this series, he was certainly in the conversation for potential MVP status alongside Fleta of the Dynasty, among a few others, but even still, this was a remarkable outing for him, though this is probably the regurgitated response that everyone will have heard or will hear about this match. So to give at least something fresh, I'd say NYXL's coaching staff was the real winner here. The minute adjustments we saw from XL to create those opportunities where they can control the match, such as, putting Mono on Roadhog over Winston while Libero stalemates the Pharaoh duel with Fleta, that just eliminates the threat of one of the most dangerous players in the league and allows them to control objectives. And that was incredibly intelligent, and I respect that.
I think something that was really surprising to all of us is not seeing Pine on any maps, including control maps. What do you make of not seeing Pine in this series?
Not seeing Pine was a bit of an odd call, in my opinion, but in limited retrospect, I can see the value in it to a degree. Yes, Pine has shown to be an unstoppable force, particularly on control maps, but Seoul knows this just as we do, and it's possible NYXL was banking on this. Now, if Seoul had prepared their control maps, especially at least, for dealing with and containing Pine, then New York was brilliant to deny them of that, and then bring Libero out with an entirely different stratagem.
In this match, were there any players that you feel particularly underperformed?
Munchkin absolutely met his match again, kind of, with New York. Excelsior clearly went out with a game plan, as Ark even mentioned after the match, to contain and deny Seoul's DPS players primarily. They quieted Fleta to a degree, but they absolutely silenced Munchkin. Sabiobi hunted this man down like a lion preys on a gazelle. Munchkin wanted no part of it at all in those duels, but Sabiobi still found ways to lock him down anyway. Really kind of shut this man down, I would say, for this series.
Let's talk about Shanghai versus Philadelphia. This was a really exciting one. One of the things that might have been surprising was not seeing Poco and instead seeing Hotba in on the Diva. Any reason why you think we might have seen that?
Hopper brings a lot to the Fusion that Poco doesn't currently provide. Poco is known as a fairly aggressive off-tank, specializing in Diva, where he focuses on executing dives with Fraggy, who's another aggressive tank player, and really punishing enemy teams. You see that a lot with the self-destructs. And then as Zarya, maybe a little sprinkle of Winston in there as well, that we've seen in the past. But Hotba, he initially came in with some communication issues with the team, but since has taken up English classes in his spare time to better mesh with the squad, and it's really paid off in a big way. Now, the Fusion can take advantage of another gear here. Hotba is different type of Diva. He's more defensive. He looks to peel and protect, where you see Poco kind of bursting to try to eliminate targets. Hotba instead uses his to kind of stave off those attacks, control space for his team, really kind of create some space there for Shadowburn to do what he does best alongside Carpe. And beyond that, Hotba also plays a fantastic Zarya himself, as well as the Hog that we, of course, were fortunate enough to witness versus Shanghai as well.
Let's talk a little bit about Shanghai here, though, because obviously they almost pulled off the reverse sweep, but they started off really cold. What did you see them change from their first two maps to the last two maps to be able to do that?
Well, the preparation, the long hours toiling in the practice rooms, working on their team play, their strategy, it's all finally paying off. The first two maps started off the way we would expect, but there were some flashes of a better team there, a team Shanghai could be given a little time. It was impressive, though, to see it take so little. Now, after Horizon, where Shanghai has sort of built up this Sombra Tracer strategy to great effect that we even saw the Dynasty now picking up, things started to go their way a little bit. The Dragons' issues were always poor ult economy, positional issues with backline, poor execution between tanks, and a lack of hero pool depth on DPS. Since the first week, though, we saw changes in tank synergy. We have seen that continue to improve steadily over time. The ult building and the ult usage has also slowly gotten better. The supports are getting better with positioning themselves to help each other out, as well as get peels from the rest of the team, which is equally as important. And in turn, Undead and Dia now have that much more space to work with to try to make their limited hero pool work. Now, as time goes on, they will get their first win, just as Field did, and everybody will be excited about that. I imagine even the team that they wind up beating will probably be excited about it as well.
Despite winning, it's clear that the Fuel really haven't found a way to return to kind of their glory days, their previous form, their dominant dynasty in Overwatch. Where do you see them underperforming right now?
It's a known factor that the Fuel just aren't a dive team. With XQC now out for the remainder of Stage 1 and Harry Hook being out sick for the match on top of that, it's not a surprise that they were going to be pigeonholed into certain styles, but I doubt anyone, or at least I didn't expect that the Fuel would give us what they did. Playing the same composition virtually all the way through the series is a huge question mark for a team that is built on the foundation of strategical and compositional creativity, especially considering the pitfalls of playing a slow-moving point control comp or strat on attack, especially when you don't have a Lucio to effectively get you to the point to start controlling it without getting picked off beforehand, which was happening a lot, especially when you look back at Horizon Lunar Colony.
In the end, the Fuel did take this one, and despite kind of starting off a little rocky, it was pretty decisive overall. Who was the real difference maker for the Fuel team here?
I gotta pick Mickey here. Effect was phenomenal as well, but it was Seagull and Mickey who were tasked with the job of keeping everyone off of him to begin with. Seagull was huge in the Junkrat, sometimes swinging team fights, shifting momentum with a concussion mine here or a rip tire there, but it was Mickey helping to peel the dive, just booping Nomi's Winston around every time he attempted to leap in. At times it was actually hilarious just watching Nomi, jumping forward, diving in, just for Mickey to thrust up and forward, swat him down like a gnat, and Seagull just followed up, killing Nomi pretty easily. You sprinkle in that Roadhog performance with the hook accuracy we saw that helped remove Dante from the equation late in the series, and I'll just say it again, I gotta pick Mickey.
What about the Shock? How do you feel like they played overall here?
I was pretty disappointed with Shock, especially early on where the map started off so well for them and they would just kind of blow it. On Eichenwald, they somehow allow Fuel to squeak through the second stage of their attack with a composition that offers virtually no ability to contest high ground, and then they finish the map outright. Shock somehow forgets how they took the first point and then squander several minutes with some of the most passive play that we've seen yet from them, an otherwise aggressive team, which gives time and opportunity for Effect to find his groove on the McCree. He shuts Baby down completely. And I don't know, regardless of the ultimate usage issues that were abound in their overtime assault, a properly executed aggressive dive with a focus on Effect or the Mercy with support backup just as they got it the first time likely would have secured the map, and they floundered it.
One hotly contested point about the Shock is Dhak. He's obviously a great leader, but it's also pretty obvious that he's struggling and his Mercy can be very hit and miss. What do you think that they should be doing to kind of address Dhak and hopefully get him back up to playing at a really high level?
Looking back at Dhak's time on Selfless and the success that they had together as the kind of black sheep with more aggression than we'd ever seen at that point, it certainly took a lot of mechanical skill and even better leadership and shot calling to maintain the team's composure in some of those spawn camp plays. Back then, though, he was on the Lucio. Now that he's off his comfort pick, he's clearly struggled with positioning on Mercy, especially when he Valks. But we even saw issues on Ilios when he was on Zenyatta for a short time as well, just way out of position at really key moments. I think the Shock really like Dhak for what he brings to this team, and I agree with them. He has focus, drive, passion, great communication that he can deliver in the game as well. But I would say if this trend were to continue while he continues to train up, I can't imagine that the Shock wouldn't use the mid-season signing window to kind of plug that hole in the interim. Fortunately, though, for him, by the time those players could be active, the meta could potentially be shifting. And if the PTR is any indication of what to expect there, I would say Dhak would probably be just fine.
My thanks to Heurix for stopping by on the show today. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at CTHeurix. Tomorrow I'm going to be joined by Volamel, and we're going to go ahead and discuss tonight's matches. Speaking of tonight's matches, here's what we've got coming up. We've got the Dallas Fuel taking on the Boston Uprising at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Then we've got the LA Valiant taking on the Florida Mayhem at 1. And then the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Houston Outlaws at 3. You can find links to everything at overwatchleaguedaily.com, or you can watch or listen to the show at winstonslab.com. That's going to do it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with Volamel for another episode of Overwatch League Daily.